Hello. So I was just reading, what is it? First Kings chapter 18. It's one of the stories of Elijah. And it was just a very timely message for me. It's been a rough little bit. I've had recently had some really positive, like hopeful thing. I've been like so much going on medically and just all this kind of stuff that I've been waiting for so long. And I've seen this little tiny bit of promise and hope. And then I just have had just a lot of things kind of interfering with that, a lot of attack, a lot of invitations to fear, right? And so I'm choosing to reject those invitations because I know that every time there's an invitation to fear, there is also an invitation to faith, and that's where I'm trying to RSVP. So anyway, as I was reading this passage, the first thing about this, because this is the passage about Elijah, and it's about Elijah. There's been this drought in the land. King Ahab, who's like this, really bad king, right? One of the most evil kings that Israel has had, right? And so there's been this drought because of because of Ahab and Jezebel. It's kind of like a condemnation from the Lord. And this is the point in time where Elijah comes, where the Lord sends him to kind of like go and into this drought, right? And before he can do like before he does that, like he goes and he basically calls out their Baal worship, right? They're the prophets of Baal, and he's basically saying, look, here is God God, or is Baal God? Who's the real God here, right? And so this is the passage where he has them cry out to their God, and then he like they put out the meat on the altar, right? Like, and they're like, okay, you cry out to your God to bring fire, and I'll cry out to my God, right? So he lets them cry out to Baal, and they're crying out and yelling, and then they're doing all kinds of things for hours and hours trying to get this fire to come and consume the sacrifice, right? And nothing happens, of course. And they're cutting themselves. They're just doing everything, right? They're doing all these routines and rituals, traditions they have in worshiping of Baal and Elijah. And it is also very, like mocking them, kind of like, oh, maybe he's asleep, maybe he's in the bathroom, like just. But anyways, that's a side issue. Um, or side note rather. But then when it's time for Elisha to take his turn, he places the meat on the sacrifice, basically, I guess, on the wood, and then digs a trench around it, and like they pour all this water on it, and he's like has him keep doing it, pouring the water until the trench is full and it's just drenched, and then he prays, and he's praying, you know, like kind of a prayer that's saying like, show these people who you are so that their hearts can be turned back to you. And then God sends fire from heaven, consumes the water and the sacrifices, and it's like, obviously which one is God. And so then they, like, at that moment he's like, go ahead and slay these false prophets, right? These prophets of Baal, right? And so and I will mention, this is kind of a side note to what the point is, but when I was reading about the part where they're like praying to Baal to bring this fire that they need for this miracle, right? There was just something about all the stuff they were doing, the way they're cutting themselves and doing all that. I just felt like, for me, like that has been like, I feel like that's when I'm trying to get answers from the medical system, when I'm trying to get answers from like some kind of earthly thing that's supposed to be something I can kind of control. I feel like it's like that same kind of experience. Like I'm doing stuff, like I for hours and hours trying to get through, and like to the point where it's not working, and so I have to do more. Like I'm cutting myself. I'm doing give you whatever you want. Just answer me, like. And I just, something about it like popped into my head when I was reading it like that. I'm like, it just really feels like how I feel at the end of trying to get help from something like the medical system nowadays. And I'm not saying that's the case for everybody, and I'm not trying to read too deeply in it. It's just a note that stood out to me. But the real point of this one, the real thing, like, because like I said, there had been a drought in the land that was going to end. This is kind of like a moment of clarity, like choose God, right? Like you have this option. You can go and cry out to your balls again, or you can, which sounds terrible, but I can't help it. That's the guy's name. Or you can like trust the Lord. Like, let's see which one's going to answer, right? And who's going to free you from this problem. But it wasn't even the drought yet. It was just like just a display of power, right? This is the real God. And then once they slaughter all the priests of the Baals, right? um, they go, or Elijah goes up on a hill, right? And he's going to pray and have the, um, for the drought to end. He's going to pray for rain, right? And then, like, again, this drought has been going on for a long time, right? And he goes up there and he's praying, and he crouches down, put his head between his knees, and he's praying. And has somebody with him, and he says, "Go look at the sky. Do you see any clouds?" And they say no. And he sends him back 7 times. He goes and says no, he doesn't see any clouds. And then the last time he goes and he says there's a cloud the size of a man's hand. And Elijah then says, "All right, go on your way, Ahab, because like you're going to get caught in the deluge. The rain is coming. It's going to be such a huge and powerful rain. You're going to get stuck here if you don't leave now," right? From this one little tiny cloud, right? And it just made me think of that in my experience, the thing that I've been going through it's been at least 4 years that it's been really constant struggle of like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do kind of thing. And then there's just recently been this one little glimpse of something that that I really feel like the Lord's doing something, right? I can't say exactly what everything, I don't know exactly when, but like there's something about that cloud the size of a man's hand, right? In that drought and all that time, no doubt there had been little clouds here and there every now and again, right? But the drought had been going on for so long. Nobody's going to hope that that cloud is going to bring rain except for Elijah, because Elijah knew who God was, and he knew God was bringing rain. And so he didn't need like really solid, clear evidence. He needed the cloud the size of a man's hand. And he says, "Look out, everybody, go run for cover. The rain's coming." And I don't know, there's something about that that just really struck a chord with me, because I feel like sometimes if we don't recognize that that's God, and we dismiss it and we go, "Oh, it's just a cloud, just a little tiny cloud. That's not enough to bring rain." Then does that lack of our faith make it never bear rain, because we didn't trust, we didn't believe, we weren't looking for God, and so we didn't find him? And I just really feel, because like there's a pattern also in the previous chapter of Elijah, and there's just this pattern with him where the Lord tells him something. Usually it's kind of crazy, and Lord says, "Go do this." Like my favorite is like, "Go and hide out up in this area where there's a wadi of water. You can drink there, and I'm going to send some ravens to feed you." And he's like, "Dope, I'm down." So he goes, and lo and behold, the ravens come and feed him. They bring him meat and bread. And it's just like the kinds of things. And go to this widow, and she will give you bread, and she will feed you for the remainder of this time of famine, right? Because the drought has caused famine, right? And it's just like, when he goes, like the Lord gives him a promise, and he tells him kind of like, "I'm doing something." And then every time Elijah is given not just a chance to have faith and believe it, but to do, like to go and do it. "Okay, I believe you, I'm going. Okay, I believe you, I'm going to go talk to that widow. Okay, I'm going to do this. Okay, the rain is coming. I'm going to go and tell Ahab, go on your way." Of course, he could have had this fear of, what if it's not? He didn't have that though. Like he knew God had called him to step out enough in these crazy things, and he had shown up every time. And it's like there's this promise, faith, provision. But like, if the promise is there and we don't have the faith, are we likely to miss the provision? Because to me that makes sense. Like, because so many times when it talks about like everything that Jesus did, and every time he says where is your faith? Like, "Oh, you of little faith." Like, could you not, like, when they couldn't drive the demon out of the man's son, and it was just because it was a little bit different, but it was again like, "How long will I have to be among you, you faithless generation?" And it's just like, I think there's so much more to that faith part of things. And so to learn to have that purity of heart, that childlike faith that doesn't need to understand, that doesn't need to see how it's all going to connect, and doesn't need like the whole, but sees that cloud the size of a man's hand and can say, "He's coming," and keep having hope, even though the problem's still going on. And for me, let me tell you, the problem is a very painful problem, and I'm still waiting, and it's not easy. And it's just like, but I'm not gonna I know already where the other path goes. I know it's just like I know they can't do anything. I know they can't help me. I know they can't even figure out what's going on. But God already knows, and he has a plan. And I believe that I've seen that cloud the size of a man's hand, and I'm going to trust, and I'm going to hope. And it's like just having that faith to see, and that willingness to hold to that, even if even if it takes a little longer than I thought it would, and I just, I don't know, I was just encouraged by that passage tonight. It was very timely for me, and so I just wanted to share it. And so I will stop now because I can babble forever these days. So